Next guest is going to be the chairperson of Azanian People's Organization, AZAPO, Comrade Simphiwe Hashe. He will be presenting as well in his 10 minutes. The reason why we are reshuffling the program a little bit is because we are experiencing a lot of load shedding in this part of the world. And then we are trying by all means to ensure that the people who are in this part of the world are able to present as soon as they can. So up next is the chairperson, again, as I said, of the Central Committee of Azanian People's Organization, AZAPO. His name is Simphiwe Hashe, and he represents an organization that is a torchbearer of Black consciousness in Azania. Comrade Simphiwe, greetings, my brother, all the best, and thank you very much. Your 10 minutes starts now.
Thank you, Tandoletu, and good morning to all our comrades and brothers and sisters that are in the diaspora, and good evening to all of you who are watching us in the continent of Africa. Allow us to greet the leadership of the Friends of the Congo, our fellow panelists, the organizers of this 2023 Mangaliso Sobukwe Commemoration event. AZAPO is very grateful to be invited to speak at this event, as we and the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania are politically joined at the hip. Our connection is really traceable to the release of Mangaliso Sobukwe from Robben Island in 1969 to the Galeshewe township in the Northern Cape, which was the beehive of Black consciousness activism at the time. It is traceable to the meeting that Sobukwe had with Biko in 1975. It is also traceable to the Kadoma discussions that were held in Zimbabwe, where the unity of the liberation forces was discussed in an effort to intensify our struggle. Black consciousness and Pan-Africanism are considered as hand in glove. Black consciousness and Pan-Africanism are one. It is no wonder then that there was no problem for the Black People's Convention comrades to receive and look after Comrade Sobukwe upon his release from Robben Island. You will also note the prominent role that the Azanian People's Organization played at the burial of Sobukwe on the 11th of March 1978, as Hlaku Rashidi, the last president of the Black People's Convention, and Drake Tsenkeng, who were involved in the burial of Steve Biko on 25 September 1977, were also involved in the burial of Comrade Mangaliso Sobukwe. Today marks the 45th anniversary of the transitioning of Mangaliso Sobukwe, a Pan-Africanist and a revolutionary whose desire was the liberation of his people and the return of the land of Africans to Africans. He determined early on in his political involvement and leadership that the struggle for true liberation can only be waged by those who are victims of land dispossession and indignity. That is why he could never accept the leadership of white liberals in the determination of the agenda of struggle, as he saw them as a group with arrogant conceit that has set itself up as the guardians, the trustees of Africans. As we reflect on his life and teachings for today's Pan-African activists, it cannot escape one's mind that only 2 weeks ago, the Azanian Revolution lost one of its foremost revolutionaries in Comrade Peter Cyril Jones, a Black consciousness theorist and activist, the last Black person to see Steve Biko alive. Comrade PC Jones, as we used to call him, was speaking of Sobukwe when he said, when he was referring to himself, that he wanted to be remembered as the everlasting revolutionary. For it is always a few amongst a generation of people that emerge with selflessness, love, and dedication to the plight of their people. Following the derailment of the Azanian Revolution through the Declaratory Charter of Rights that was signed at Kliptown in Soweto in 1955, It was Sobukwe and his cohort of comrades who had the presence of mind to recognize that the struggle for freedom in Azania is underpinned by the return and repossession of the land to Africans, as the land cannot belong to those who live in it. Those who put together the Cape Town Charter of Rights determined that the land belongs to those who are oppressed and those who oppress us, to those who colonized our land and those colonized. Sobukwe realized and told the masses of our land that the land Azania belongs to Africans and only Africans, period. No sooner had he realized this, that he quickly mobilized his comrades and established the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania in 1959 and broke away from the ANC and the ANC Youth League. It was under the auspices of the PAC that he called on leaders to lead from the front, in line with the newly established PAC's motto of the time of leaders in front, as they dead the system of apartheid and colonialism by mobilizing people to leave their places of employment and march to the various police stations in the country to hand over their passes to the police station under the banner of no bail, no defense. Sobukwe led from the front and took his pass to the Orlando police station. And that is where Sobukwe got arrested. Sobukwe's leadership of the anti-pass campaign was to be the last time that he enjoyed freedom of movement in this country of birth, as this anti-pass campaign led to his arrest and 3-year imprisonment that was soon converted to life incarceration through the notorious Sobukwe clause that was inserted in the General Amendment Act of 1963. It is this act that gave powers to the Minister of Justice to review and extend the incarceration of a prisoner at his own discretion. It was through this clause that Sobukwe was sent to Robben Island and kept there for 6 years in solitary confinement. He was to be banished to Khalishiwe in the Northern Cape upon his release, and that is where he studied and continued to further his education under heavy police presence and security surveillance. And that is where he obtained his law degree. And this is where he is said to have died of cancer on the 27th of February, 1978, 45 years ago. So how best then do we remember Mangaliso Sobukwe? What lessons do we take forward from his commitment to free his people? His preparedness to suffer and sacrifice, his relentless effort to lead from the front in the quest for freedom and liberation of Africans. We should remember Sobukwe for his call that we should fight to be in a position to call our souls our own. And for as long as we cannot do that, we have little to no power to achieve anything. This cannot be more pronounced than the experience of living in a neo-colonial settlement and seeing and telling firsthand how difficult the past 29 years have been as a person living in occupied Azania. We live in a country where those who occupy office are Black people who fought tirelessly along with us in the trenches of the revolution for the freedom that we still yearn for. And yes, we have rights: the right to associate and belong, the right to choose who rules over us, and many other rights that had nothing to do with the fundamental reason why Black people chose to give their lives to the struggle for freedom. The struggle for freedom was a struggle for dignity and self-determination that can only be realized with the reclamation of the land that was dispossessed from our forefathers through the barrel and the spear of the gun. Until then, we shall remain with hollow souls that continue to wallow in poverty and the indignity of borrowing from the colonizers the means to decent living and better life. When we see young people with university degrees loitering the streets unemployed, we must remember that we didn't choose to educate ourselves using our own value systems and methods. We were subjected to an education system that perpetuates poverty and dependency. Sobukwe's teachings speak to the desire for Africans to obtain education for liberation, which gives rise to self-reliance and independence. We must choose to produce and eat our own food, no matter how small the scale is. Our health and healing must be informed by how well we connect with the land and our ancestors. The air we breathe must connect us to our land, our values, and our people. As we remember Sobukwe on this 45th anniversary of his passing, we must call on his spirit and that of Biko and PC Jones to descend upon us and connect with us so that there can be light as our country continues to wallow in darkness, hunger, and squalor. Let the spirit of Sobukwe rise. AZAPO salute the son of the soil. I thank you.
One nation.
One Azania.
One Azania.
Indeed.
And thank you very much, Comrade Simphiwe Hashe, for that contribution. You have heard when Comrade Simphiwe was saying that Black consciousness and Pan-Africanism are one. And that is, if you did not hear anything else from what he has said, at least that particular aspect, you should have heard it. And thank you very much again